working? Okay. I can always edit. Hello, beautiful people. Today we are talking about something very interesting. Um, what seems to be coming out over and over, there's about 70,000 diseases that have all these labels in the book of charging people insurance and the disease care system, which is another topic. The funny thing is, back in Tartaria, we used to have bells, big, massive bells with such old languages that they were like combinations of languages we considered separate now. They'd been there for a long time. World War II, World War One and Two were basically staged or happened to destroy the old world, to destroy Tartaria, the last massive empire that basically was the whole world. Genghis Khan was actually the last ruler. That's why they demonize him. That's another story. But what this video is about is these bells and the cathedrals everywhere. The cathedrals are not religious buildings at all. They have nothing to do with religion at all. Zero to do with religion. They've been hijacked and turned into churches, which seem pretty pointless given how it doesn't seem to be helping our society, and at least in America. These cathedrals are healing machines. The circle at the front door is a somatic, what's that other word? It's somatics. It's got a certain vibration. You go inside, the arcs and everything were there to heal the human being. This is a machine to heal people. That's why it's not a church. That's why there's no toilets. There's no bathrooms in these cathedrals. You didn't go in there to hang out for 3 hours and celebrate clothing, as George Carlin would say. You went in there to heal yourself. And they're built so magnificently that the DNA of the human being going into these buildings would pretty much immediately, within a very short period of time, be healed. The organ, the big pipe organ, makes the whole thing resonate. And so they wanted to hide these things. So World War II, they took all the bells down and said they needed them for making ammo, which is just it's a lie. It's a lie. They didn't need it for ammo. They were taking it down because all of those bells created a field within the ether, within the space, that helped human beings stay clear of the Archon, of the jinn, of the interdimensional parasites that feed upon our fear, misery, and suffering. And that's just a fact. That's been mentioned worldwide for thousands of years, that those interdimensional beings exist. In the Gnostic texts that were found from those early Christian Gnostic group, they mention the Archon a lot, and that's a big part of being aware, is not to let those voices become your voices, not to let them hijack you. Well, these bells created a resonance field, which made those entities scared them away, kept them away from polluting us as a species. Forget these races. That's a race to create war. We're one species. We're one family. So if you start with the context of Tartaria and having all these bells everywhere, having cathedrals that heal people pretty much instantaneously with the sound and the resonance. It's always resonance. It's not manifesting life. It's creating life through resonance. That's a different topic also. So this technology was here to protect us, to keep us living in an octave of awareness, a different dimension of spiritual awareness that created a completely different society. Completely different. If you look at the old pictures of Tartaria, it's gorgeous. There's domes everywhere. There's gold-plated horse statues that are the size of a horse with somebody riding it. And they tore almost all of it down to hide the fact that they were resetting us. And we also had free wireless ether energy, which was free wireless ether energy everywhere. If you go and look at the pictures of all the world fairs, you'll see all of these lights everywhere. What's powering them? Supposedly the Industrial Revolution brought electricity and all this stuff. That's another lie. Period. It's a lie. It's another part of the reset to keep us from understanding ether, free wireless electricity. And they say Tesla invented it. He didn't invent it. He remembered it. He remembered that we had just had it and they'd just taken it away. That's why on the top of almost all of these buildings, you see antennas with the little round ball that goes through that has mercury in it. There's mercury, and the mercury spins. You can see all the stuff's being proven if you find the videos. This voice found a lot of them and put it together. So this would create, you have free wireless electricity, which, when free electricity kind of takes a lot of stress off our human species, right? You have healing bell frequencies that keep the archons and the jinn off of us. You have healing machine cathedrals with these giant pipe organs that make the whole thing resonate. So when you walk into that field, you're healed. All the imbalances are cleared through sound therapy and sacred geometry together. Then you throw in the pyramids doing what they do, and now we've seen Giza's 2 kilometers below it is all this stuff, all these giant rods that are vibrating also, making the pyramid vibrate. So what we want to say today, parasites, from what is being understood by this voice, are like antennas of old thoughts, feelings, emotions, which create a triangle, thoughts, feelings, and emotions, that then give judgments. Those create judgments from the inside world to the outside world through the thoughts, which is the movement of energy through the mind. Feelings is energy moving through the heart in relation to the mind. And emotion is that energy in motion, emotion, energy in motion between the inner world, the sacred space of the heart, which is our natural residence of bliss and joy, which is your birthright. It's already there. You don't have to do anything from outside to have that. That's called pleasure. When you do things to get happiness, that's pleasure. Pleasure has pain. Pleasure and pain. Bliss and joy are organically, intrinsically natural to our species. That's why with the bells and the cathedrals and the pyramids, that part of us was in control. When you cripple this infrastructure and you take the cathedrals and you rip the pipe organs out of it, so now that it doesn't work, and you put fake religions, religious in there to control and confuse people to look at a book as opposed to listen to their heart, and then you take away the bells that keep the archons and the jinn off of us and keep us resonating at a higher frequency, divine frequency, and then you replace it with 4G towers, 5G towers. That's replacing the bell frequencies with these other frequencies that brings down into the animal self, navel and below, those chakras. So when this happens, these archons, their energy field can penetrate the human species. Once it does this, it creates a ripple effect in our DNA. Our DNA is based on sound. It just is. It's been proven over and over. And sound gives birth to light. That's a fact. In the beginning is the word, and then let there be light. Word, sound before light. So that sound healing of the cathedrals, with that taken and replaced with music that's not even real, it's 440, and then they make it digital, so it's a step thing, so there's no analog wave. They take all that away. They cripple music also, so you don't get the healing from the music. You just get this blob hitting you from the radio. Now, you can get apps to make it play 432 or 528. Highly recommend that. It'll change everything. You can listen to Coldplay in 528 instead of 440. Great dude. Great band. And these parasites are like the reflection of this frequency being replaced with the lower frequency. So these archon energies are getting into us. We think of it as physical. The parasite, I pet my pet, and then I wipe my ear, and all of a sudden these parasites got into me. That's because they exist, because the species has been brought down into a different, lower, thicker dimension. So thoughts, feelings, emotions create judgments, and those create identities. Identity is the biggest trap, the biggest sin, if you will, to identify with thoughts, feelings, emotions that create judgments, that create these identities inside yourself that you hit other people with, or attack people with, or hit yourself with, and get mad at yourself because you identify with something negative that's not really the joy and bliss in your heart. Then these things start crystallizing into physical form. And the fact that people have so many of them, and and like I just discovered that I have them. I didn't realize I had a tapeworm on my leg. Was a kid, and it just stayed there for a couple of years. I didn't nobody took care of me. But and then they gave me horse antibiotics as a kid. So my GI tract was dead. The parasites were there. Recently, I just realized that the reason I was continuously drinking beer is because I was feeding all the parasites. And I'd lived in a car with multiple cats in a tent with multiple cats, and they say if you live with animals, you're going to have parasites. Well, in such tight quarters, let me just tell you, as I'm treating them, it feels like they're everywhere in my body. In my head, the knee pain I had is parasites. I could not figure out why all of a sudden it hurt, and now when I started taking these things that they don't like that get rid of them, which is another video is like explaining how to get rid of them. Like literally tonight, I was laying there and I could feel them like getting agitated. It's like the crystalline parasite, those thought forms are being released. They're being killed so they can go out. The old thoughts, feelings, emotions, judgments, and identities start fading and melting so that you can return to silence. And the biggest experience I had when I was in China for 16 days was a massive bell in this really old temple. And when they hit that thing, my whole being got as clear as it's ever been in relation to something. So I'm just remembering that at this moment. But again, that's sound healing therapy. What did I do recently? I bought some Tibetan singing bowls and some 432 crystal bowls, and I've been playing them. And I got a violet ray machine, which they don't like that either, from a Tesla coil from the teens, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s that got put out of business because you can't go home and fix your headache in 5 minutes. There's no profit margin in that. Can't fix pain in 5 minutes. No profit margin in that. So all these tools have been taken away, and you see what's left. Poison food, poison water, poison skies, the wrong frequencies being emitted. So the parasites are a condensation, if you will. Like you take a drink out that's cold and you sit it in a hot room, the condensation starts going down the side of the glass. Then it starts creating rings on the table. Ringworm. So the rings are the precipitation of these thought forms getting a hold of your DNA and crystallizing into your body. The more old thoughts, feelings, emotions, judgments, and identities you carry, the more open passageways they have to get into you in different places of your body. That's why some people have very less. Maybe they have really good confidence. They eat really clean. They don't carry a lot of baggage around. And yesterday, this voice was driving around working, watching all that happen. Because it's only been 2 or 3 days that I've been attacking them. And oh man, I started noticing the difference between my voice, the joy, bliss voice from the heart, right? And the voices that they were carrying. They're not mine. So I'd been miserable in certain ways or stuck in a time loop of acting the same way because they kept reinforcing that because that's how they fed off me. That's how they kept me small and little and like a food source for them. And now that I'm seeing that and I can differentiate clearly because I'm getting the antennas out of my body, so all that, it's like, how much shungite do you have to carry to block 5G if you got a 5G tower strapped to your back on a backpack with a battery and you're walking around, right? Can't get it out. So these parasites are antennas carrying stuck emotions, feelings, all that stuff we were talking about, and they resonate through your body. That's why when you start killing them, you start creating a space so that your heart, the joy and bliss, can return to the silence, the field of silence with which all things originate. And those voices can start being pushed away and let go of, which is what the bells would have done, what the cathedrals would have done, what the pyramids would have done. They would have helped you perceive yourself clearly and kept all these other frequencies and these evil interdimensional blood-sucking mosquito-like beings out of your consciousness and out of our species consciousness. Now, again, if you haven't seen anything about Tartaria, you have to understand these bells are all over the planet. There's one left. There's probably more than one, but there's one in particular left in Australia. And they hit that thing, and I can tell you I could feel it. And it's massive. And why do you think they left the one bell in Pennsylvania? because it's broken, right? They can leave that in his story because it's broken and ain't going to do what it's supposed to do. So they took all these bells, and I've seen the pictures of them, just hundreds of them just stacked up, supposedly for bullets for World War II, another cover story of his story. So this voice just wanted to help people understand everybody's going to have parasites because the world is set up in a way that old thoughts, feelings, emotions, judgments, and identities do not get processed well, do not get let go well. Our society, and especially TV and movies, just reinforces these things. Just make sure they stay on you, so you cannot get free of them and find the silence, and thus the bliss and joy that is your God-given nature. So when you start killing parasites, pumpkin seeds, garlic, apple cider vinegar, other things, I don't want to do a video on that right now because I don't have the notes by me. As you start doing that, you will start differentiating between what's really you and what's outside invading you and putting voices in your head. So again, the parasites are crystallization. They're like an antenna that's taking this other entity's ability to feed on you and giving it a pathway to listen inside of you and also communicate. An antenna is a two-way communication. Well, at least this one is. I don't know if all antennas are, but it's a two-way antenna. So you hear them and they can affect you. There's so many in me because I didn't do anything about this. I barely eaten food. One of the byproducts of having too many parasites is either excess appetite or lack of appetite. I've barely ever been able to eat my whole life. That's how long it's been. I mean, when you grow up eating ice cream for breakfast for 13 years straight from the age of 4 to 17, nothing's quite in balance, right? So that helps me see all this stuff because the timeline that I went through, and then, going into Kriya Yoga and all these things where you get some clarity of mind, create some silence through techniques. Now being able to perceive this differentiation is like a massive, massive deal. For me, I feel like a completely different person. Like I woke up today after going through last night and taking zeolites, waking up in the middle of the night, taking zeolites because after you're taking things to kill them or make them paralyzed, you take zeolites or bentonite clay, things that are called binders. There's more than two. And they will bind to the dead or the dying parasite and pull it out. And I can tell you a lot of stuff's coming out because I barely eat something and and a lot more is coming out than's going in. So where's that coming from? So just ponder that and look up Tartaria, please. Bells everywhere. The cathedrals are healing machines. The pyramids are free electrical circuits. All of this changes, and it's worldwide, changes our understanding of our story, not his story. His story is written by the winners of war and the controllers of money, fake, empty, zero-calorie money. Our story comes from Tartaria. We've been reset. The mud flood, as they say, it was a massive battle between Tartaria and other entities, and it was an ether battle with technology that is way more powerful than we have now. That made the whole earth vibrate so that they could destroy and reset everything and then take control of it. That's just a fact. You can look it up. And if you see, please go to look at the pictures of all the world's fairs. They will blow your mind. Because we're supposedly in the Industrial Revolution, the most advanced that we've ever been. Not even close. Not even close. Not to mention, these were all dome buildings because the dome is a sacred geometry sound. This, again, heals the person. The kingdom, right? It's not the king square, the king cube. It's the kingdom. So this voice wants to empower people to get their bliss and joy back, to find the ground of silence. When you understand where we come from, our story versus his lie story, you can see that we're being manipulated. So then once you realize that, you can get out of it. So that's enough for today. This is the first video, just testing to see how it's working. Got the new setup. Got a tensor ring on my head. If you don't know about tensor rings, definitely learn about tensor rings. Got to learn how to do some brazing. And Elom, love, joy, happiness. Remember, silence is your bliss. Never forget.